The film begins with George and his family who are moving into a new house. The house was very bad. There was no electricity in the house and the food was not enough to satisfy their hunger, but their mother told them that they should thank God. But George did not believe what his mother said while sleeping. Alan tells George that he should not hit anyone at school on his first day because he is a nervous person. The next day he goes to school and everyone looks at him because of his looks in class. When he tried to answer the teacher's question, she wouldn't let him. At lunchtime, he was sitting alone and had no food and the rest were eating. One of the students bullies George, which makes him angry and beats him. When the teacher came, he ran away. Years later, we see him and his friend watching the bar. When the drunk man came out, they followed him and tried to rob him. But the surprise is that the person is a policeman, and this is an ambush for them. A police car arrives and they chase after George, who is hidden in the sewer pipes. The police arrive at his hiding place and they had a police dog. So he covered his body with sewage so that the dog would not detect him. Indeed, the police could not find him. When George was on his way home, he saw an establishment where food and drink were given for free. But in this institution, a person's talent is discovered and developed, and in return, he works for them. He returns to his mother and tells her what he saw while telling her that he will travel to that institution. She encourages him and lets him go. The next day, he goes to the institution and is given the official uniform of the institution. The guard informs him of the laws of the place. He enters the room and sees the new shoes that his mother bought him. One of them, named March, was playing music and George got angry and turned off the music. When it is time for lunch, he is surprised that his shoes have disappeared as his shoes have been stolen. In the dining hall, he saw the thief wearing his shoes. He is chasing him while he is angry. But the thief enters the room and closes the door. But he breaks the door and attacks him and was about to throw him out the window. But Duck intervened and broke up the fight between them. He was surprised when he noticed that the door was broken. He takes him with him in his car and he had his file with him and he knew that he had previously got into 3 fights, so he was rejected. Doc gives him the money for the ticket, but George begs him a lot and tells him that this institution is all he has left and they cannot return home defeated. Already, Doc sympathizes with him and takes him back to the institution. He tells him that he has noticed that he is strong and asks him to join the club, and we find out that Doc is the coach. He agrees and enters the gym and fights one of them, but he fails. Everyone was mocking him, but Doc continued to instruct him. But George got angry and came out and hit a punching bag and knocked him down, making everyone surprised by his strength. Doc trains him at the gym and gives him a cheer. He calls his mother and tells her about his entry into boxing. She asks him to stay away from fighting. He told her it was just a sport and it had rules. Then he confronts the person he met earlier, hits him and knocks him to the ground. Doc was impressed with George's performance. George goes to Doc and tells him that he wants to get into matches, but Doc tells him that he is still a beginner boxer and he has to train. He asked him about the earliest date for the tournament, and he told him that after a year the tournament would be held and told him that he would not be able to participate because he had more training ahead of him. A year later, we see George participating in the tournament and fighting a strong Russian boxer. His family was watching him on TV and they were very proud of him. The fight begins and everyone is cheering for George. After several strikes from George on his opponent, he easily wins the gold medal. He was happy and raised the American flag. His family was in disbelief at what they saw as their brother had won his first gold medal at the age of 19. The next day, he was wearing his gold medal and meeting his friends. They told him why he raised the American flag despite their killing of black people, but he was angry and went back to his mother, who calmed him down. He tells her that he is going to participate in a tournament at the airport. The beautiful girl catches his attention, so he goes to meet her and she is called Paula. Then he was able to take her phone number. We see him with Doc, who takes him to professionals to train him. He introduces him to Sadler and Coach Moore. George watches Sonny, who wears a black belt and trains with them. He starts training and then calls Paula. They got to know each other and love each other. He enters some matches that qualify him to enter the tournament. He managed to win all his matches easily, and he became famous. Then he decided to marry Paula. Finally, he was able to reach the final match. And his match was with a professional boxer who defeated Muhammad Ali 2 years ago. And he was expected to beat George easily. Everyone was chanting the opponent's name. The fight begins between the two parties and he remembers the words of his coaches. He receives an unexpected blow from his opponent, but he also hits him and then punches him, knocking him down. Everyone was shocked by George's strength. The second round begins and George is in control and delivers multiple punches. Then he hit him and knocked him to the ground. Indeed, George deservedly won the championship. Duke was very happy because he knew that one day this person would become a hero. He becomes famous. Then he takes on Arch and makes him his manager because he's smart at math. Agreement between them. George watches the news that boxer Muhammad Ali is mocking George. He told the announcer that he would face George one day and defeat him. George takes his family to the big house and they celebrate his success. He had a child, but he didn't care about his wife. His sister Mary tells him that she is pregnant. Problems happen between him and his wife because of the fans, and she was upset about that because he changed after that. He travels to participate in a big tournament to fight Muhammad Ali. Everyone was waiting for him. He noticed Muhammad Ali mocking him in front of everyone. But George remained silent. Everyone thought that George would beat Muhammad Ali because he was so strong. In the match, he decided to fight in his own style without the help of his coaches. The match begins with him controlling the match. But then he loses focus because of his ego and arrogance. Muhammad Ali dominated the match. Dark was angry because George was fighting unfocused and punching randomly. In the end, Muhammad Ali was victorious. Everyone was so shocked. He spoke to his family, but his wife told him that she wanted a divorce. Afterward, he meets his mother, who asks him why he kicked out. He tells her that he was the reason for his loss, and he holds him responsible for his failure. One day, he decided to fight 5 boxers in order to prove to everyone that he is strong. Muhammad Ali was among those present. As usual, he mocks George, who asked him to rematch between them. But Muhammad Ali tells him that he does not fight losing people. Then we watch him with Doc and find out that he lost. Doc gives him tips to get back to his old self. A message reaches him and he rushes to the hospital because his sister Mary is about to give birth, but her baby is in danger and may die. His mother asks them to pray to God. He goes out and prays a lot and he is sorry to God. He told God that if someone had to die, he should die instead of his sister's son. After a few moments, we see Mary with her son and they are in good health. The doctors couldn't believe how the baby lived. She told him that she knew he had called upon God, and that God had answered him. After days passed, he was fighting his opponent, but he was out of focus. Everyone was talking that George, since his loss from Muhammad Ali, was no longer the same. Indeed, he lost the match. Doc didn't know how to deal with him. He was very angry and asked them not to talk and passed out. He was about to die, but he survived. Doc told him they thought he was dead. He feels faith and goes to church and talks about what happened to him. He told them that people should believe in the existence of God. He decided to retire from boxing and dedicate his life to serving God and the church and to become a priest. When he came out of the church and told Doc that he was retiring, he couldn't believe it. He tried to convince him to return to boxing, but he was adamant about his decision. Then he goes to Muhammad Ali and they start a new page and become friends. After that, he goes to his wife and apologizes to her. She accepts his apology but refuses to return to him in the church. He saw a girl and fell in love with her. He takes the microphone and stands in front of the church and gives advice to people. After that, he goes to meet Jenny and talks to her. Then he takes her to an old church that was closed. He decided to reopen the church again. 10 years later, he became a pastor in the church and gave advice to people. A mother asks him to teach her son boxing, but he refuses. Then we see him with his wife, Jenny, and their children. Then he witnessed in the news the child whose mother brought him to teach him boxing while he was accused of theft. He regretted not agreeing to train the kid, which made him take hours and go to an old gym for them to reopen. Irish was a bit nervous, and something seemed wrong. Then he renovated the place and spent a lot of money until young people started coming to train. Suddenly, the electricity goes out, and it turns out that they did not pay. He goes to the bank, and the big surprise is that his balance in the bank is empty. And if he does not pay the money, the sports club will be closed. All this because of Irish, who betrayed him and gambled with the money. He goes to him and hits him, but then leaves him. He decided to do ads in order to save money for the gym, but his wife tells him that they did not reach half of the amount. He had no choice but to go back to boxing again. Although Jenny was against the idea, he convinced her. He goes to Doc and tells him that he wants to go back to boxing. He told him that it would be difficult to return because of his weight and age, but he was adamant. He asked him to lose weight and return to him to train him. He returns to exercise every day continuously, and indeed he was able to reach the ideal weight. Then he went to Doc, who trained him. Then he gets into the fight, and the surprise is that he managed to win.
I'll tell you this. He has Sowski and...
The media is talking about it, and it is being received on television programs. Then comes the Golden Bell Championship. He lost, but despite his loss, everyone was cheering for him. He went to the bank where he was able to get good money from the advertisements and matches he participated in and was able to pay off the debts. Then he enters into another fight with another champion, and his opponent was young, but because of his experience, he can defeat him with a fatal punch.
Solid. Right hand and unbelievable.
Everyone was impressed by what George did as he became the boxing champion, despite his old age.